This is obviously a very solemn occasion, and the fact that it does coincide with the news last night that 10 years after 9/11, the culprit of that tragedy, the greatest tragedy on our soil, has been killed. The news that justice has finally been served has brought comfort to our nation and, quite frankly, to the world, and it'll also awaken in many of us memories of 9/11, and we're all going through many of the emotions of the loss of that day as well, when thousands of Americans and hundreds of citizens from other countries died on that day nearly 10 years ago. And it's fitting that as we remember the Holocaust, we also remember the tragedy of 10 years ago. The poignancy of the Holocaust, the 11 million people that died, must never be forgotten. We must always seek to actively remember the lessons of history, because we know clearly that while the faces and the forces change, the evil that allows men to kill their fellow people is also always present. And what we must remain constantly vigilant against those forces so that we never see another Hitler. That task is taking a greater significance every year, because as time passes, the ranks of survivors and liberators diminish. There will be a day in the future where we no longer have survivors and liberators amongst us. And that means that the task falls to the rest of us to continuing remembering the tragedies that came before. We're obligated to remember. We're obligated to remain constantly vigilant by our basic code of humanity. That's why we commemorate the victims of the Holocaust, the 11 million souls that were perished, and we must remember each of them. Certainly the Jewish victims are the most visible of the most targeted, but we must also remember the millions of non-Jews who died as well, the Eastern Europeans, the trade unionists, the political prisoners, the homosexuals, all who died in the Holocaust because people remained silent instead of speaking out. That's the lesson we must remember, that we have an obligation to actively speak out and act against evil no matter where we find it, because when first they come for someone else, if we don't speak out, we may very well be surprised that we're alone when they come for us. This is our solemn duty, and I'm honored to join you today as we rededicate ourselves to that duty and as we remember.